Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something super relevant to a lot of you out there. We're talking English speaking skills.
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
It is. Whether you're, getting ready for like a big presentation at work or you're, maybe brushing up on your English after not using it for a while, or even if you're just curious about how to become like a more confident speaker in English. This one's for you.
Definitely. And it's funny. One of the things that I find super interesting is just how many people hit a wall with language learning in general.
Oh, yeah.
They start out, they're so gung-ho,
Yeah.
and then they just kind of struggle to stay consistent.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And that is something that we're going to be digging into today. We have some source material all about someone named Rami, who really figured out how to break through that consistency barrier and make like real progress with their spoken English.
Interesting.
And what really struck me when I was going through the material was this idea of giving yourself permission to speak,
Oh, I like that.
which I think is something that a lot of us can relate to, like that fear of making mistakes or just, not sounding perfect.
Yeah, and getting caught up in that idea of perfection, which I think is so easy to do when you're learning something new, and particularly English, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like a global language, there's a lot of pressure.
Hmm.
And Rami actually talked about how for a long time they were just stuck in this cycle of like studying all the grammar rules, memorizing vocabulary, but being too afraid to actually use the language.
Oh, wow. So they were like completely stuck in the studying phase. They weren't even getting to the like trying to speak it phase.
No, not really.
Wow. So how did they get out of that? Like, what did this permission to speak actually look like for them?
Well, it started with like a mindset shift, really simple but powerful. And they decided to just stop focusing on being perfect and just embrace this idea of making mistakes as part of the learning process.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it still feels a little abstract.
Yeah.
Like, how did that actually translate into, like concrete steps to start speaking more confidently?
Yeah. So they started with what they called like the mirror method.
Okay.
So basically just spending a few minutes each day just talking to themselves in the mirror in English.
I can imagine that feeling a little awkward. Like at first you're like talking to yourself in the mirror.
Right.
But I guess it makes sense. You got to get comfortable hearing your own voice forming those English sounds.
Totally. And actually they said they felt silly at first.
Yeah, I bet.
But, they stuck with it because they knew to get over that initial self-consciousness is kind of key.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's interesting is they said that the mirror helped them see their progress, too.
And what do you mean by that?
Like literally see. Because they started to pay more attention to their facial expressions,
So interesting.
their body language while they were speaking. So it added another layer of awareness to their practice.
I like that, like literally seeing yourself become more comfortable. Cool. So mirror method, good starting point. What came next?
Okay, so then they were like, okay, the mirror is helping with like the initial confidence, but I need to like take this a step further and actually hear myself
Oh, yeah.
more objectively.
Yeah.
So they started recording themselves having conversations in English.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So you become your own language coach, right?
Right.
Listen back. You can hear like where you're stumbling. You can track your progress. That's awesome. Any specific techniques they use for recording themselves?
Yeah, well, they would like pick a topic they were interested in.
Okay.
So maybe something they had read about or seen on the news or something.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they would just have a conversation with themselves about it, but they would record it.
Okay.
And then sometimes they'd use like prompts
Okay.
from different language learning apps or websites as conversation starters.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Mm.
I feel like there's a theme emerging here. It's about making the speaking practice feel more natural, less like a formal exercise.
Exactly. Which brings us to their next big breakthrough. Language exchange groups.
Oh, language exchange groups. Okay, I've always been curious about those. What's that like?
Basically, they're groups where people who are learning different languages get together
Okay,
and they help each other practice.
got it.
So you might have someone learning English paired up with someone who's learning, I don't know, Spanish,
Yeah.
and they spend time speaking both languages.
Oh, that's cool. So it
Yeah.
takes the pressure off a little bit
Right.
because everyone's there to learn and support each other.
Exactly.
Did Rami have any tips on finding the right group?
Yeah, they said it's important to find one that's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Your personality, your learning style.
Yeah.
Some are more casual. They just focus on conversation and social interaction.
Right.
Some are more structured. They have activities and exercises.
Okay. Yeah.
Rami actually tried a few different groups.
Yeah. It's like anything else. You got to shop around and see what works for you. Okay, so we've got the mirror method, we've got recording yourself, we've got these language exchange groups, all great ways to build confidence, get more practice speaking. But let's be real, life gets in the way. How do we actually make this like a consistent habit?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And Rami's approach to routine was really interesting. They started small.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
committed to just 15 minutes
Okay.
of any English activity each day.
I love that. Starting small, it's so tempting to try to do too much too soon,
Right.
and then you just burn out.
Exactly.
So 15 minutes a day, how they actually stick to that?
So their tip was integrate it.
Integrating.
Yeah, integrate English practice into your existing routines.
Oh, so instead of making it like a separate thing,
Right.
you kind of weave it into stuff you're already doing.
Exactly. So instead of like scrolling through social media for 15 minutes,
Okay, yeah.
they would listen to an English podcast
Oh, that's a good one.
during their commute or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they would swap their usual news website.
Or one in English while they were having breakfast.
Love how they just slip those little bits of practice in.
Yeah,
Way more sustainable than trying to like block off this huge chunk of time, you know?
totally. It's those small, consistent efforts that really add up over time. And, speaking of small efforts, even those like short bursts can be really beneficial.
Oh, like how?
They would use flashcards
Okay.
on their phone just while waiting in line or like during
Yeah.
commercial breaks.
Oh, that's
And then,
smart. Little mini workouts.
Exactly.
Love that.
Hmm.
For your language skills,
Yeah.
did they have a specific method for choosing which vocabulary to focus on?
Yeah, they were pretty strategic about it. Anytime they'd come across a new word or phrase during like their daily English activities, reading, listening, watching, they'd write it down
Oh, wow.
and add it to their flashcards.
Okay. So they were carrying around a little notebook or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I could do that. I
Oh.
would like forget or lose the notebook. Did they use any like tech tools for that?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like to stay organized with vocab?
Yeah, definitely. In addition to flashcards, they were big fans of apps,
Okay.
like Duolingo, things like that.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, really helpful for grammar, practicing vocabulary, and making it, more game-like and fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But what really took their learning to the next level was AI,
Oh, wow. Okay.
specifically ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Okay. This is something I've been hearing a lot about, but haven't had a chance to really look into yet.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
So how did they use it to like improve their English speaking?
So they used it as a kind of AI conversation partner.
What?
Yeah, so they could type in any topic
Uh-huh.
they wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT would respond back in like natural English.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal English tutor, but like 2047.
Right. Exactly. It's amazing for practicing, different scenarios and getting comfortable expressing yourself.
Wow, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
definitely need to check that out. That sounds like super helpful. Especially I feel like for those of us who get a little stuck in that like perfectionist mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that Rami really appreciated about it was judgment-free.
Oh, that's nice.
You can just make mistakes, try things out,
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to feel self-conscious.
I like that. Did they have any like specific tips for using ChatGPT effectively?
Yeah, they emphasized treating it like a real person,
Oh.
not just a language tool. So like engaging in back and forth,
Oh, okay.
asking follow-up questions, sharing opinions, even injecting some humor.
Oh, that's fun. That makes sense.
Yeah, make it like a real conversation.
Yeah. Any other tips?
They would also use it to practice specific skills.
Oh, okay.
So if they were working on like conditional sentences,
Hmm.
they would come up with prompts that would make them use those.
Oh, that's smart.
Or if they were learning like new vocabulary about a certain topic,
Okay.
they would try to have conversations with ChatGPT about that.
So they were really intentional with their practice.
Yeah, for sure. But they were also quick to point out that it's not a replacement
Oh, yeah, for
for
sure.
like real human interaction. They still made time for like native speakers through language exchange and online community.
Absolutely. You got to have that. It's about finding that balance, right?
Exactly.
Using technology, but also getting that real human connection.
For sure. And actually, they talked about how focusing on spoken English also helped their listening comprehension.
Oh, interesting. How so?
They said as they got more comfortable producing the sounds,
Okay.
they were better at understanding them in different contexts.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. It's like your brain is kind of like
Yeah.
tuning in to those sounds and those
Mhm.
patterns.
Yeah.
It's like music. The more you play, the better you get at like
Yeah.
recognizing notes and melodies, you know.
That's a great analogy. So it's not just about speaking, it's about creating like a holistic learning experience.
Yeah.
Listening, reading, writing.
All of it. All of it.
Wow.
It's about immersing yourself. And then it sounds like Rami really embraced that, but did they like talk about how they track their progress?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like it's easy to feel like you're not getting anywhere.
That's such an important point. It's easy to lose motivation if you're not seeing results.
Yeah.
And Rami had some really clever strategies for staying motivated and tracking their improvement.
Okay, like what?
First, they kept a language journal.
Okay, language journal. I've heard of those, but never actually used one.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a personal dictionary and grammar reference guide.
Oh, okay.
They'd organize it by topic,
Hmm.
and then they would look back and review, specific vocabulary or grammar structures.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they would reflect on the learning process.
Oh, interesting.
Like what was working, what was challenging, any insights they'd gained.
I can see how that would be really valuable
Yeah.
to stay organized, but also just to reflect any other methods they use for tracking improvement.
This one was really interesting. They would listen to old recordings of themselves.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I can imagine it being a little cringy at first, but also incredibly motivating to hear how far you've come.
Yeah, exactly. They said it was like a time capsule of their language journey. And they could hear like the hesitation in their voice and the
Yeah.
moments where they would like stumble. But as they listened to more recent recordings,
Mhm.
they noticed a big difference. Clearer pronunciation.
Yeah.
Their sentences flowed more smoothly. They sounded more confident and natural.
Oh, that's amazing. It's so cool how even just listening back to yourself can be like such a source of motivation.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah.
about celebrating those small victories,
Yeah.
recognizing how far you've come.
Hmm.
And that's crucial for consistency. It's not just about the routines and the tools.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that inner drive,
Yeah, the belief.
that belief.
I can do this.
Exactly.
Right. So embracing the challenges, knowing that with consistent effort, you will get there.
Yeah. Which brings us to another important part of their approach, embracing imperfection.
Okay. Yeah. We touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself permission to make mistakes.
Right.
But like, how did they actually do that?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
But it's a lot harder to actually do it.
Yeah, for sure. And they had this really insightful way of looking at mistakes. They saw them as feedback,
Okay.
not as failures.
Oh, that's a good reframe. Yeah. Instead of being discouraged by them,
Yeah,
you see them as like signposts
exactly.
and pointing you in the right direction.
And they actually kept a list
Oh, wow.
of their mistakes. Pronunciation errors, grammar slip-ups,
Yeah.
and they would review them.
So they were like actively seeking out their mistakes and using them as a learning tool.
Totally. That's awesome.
Yeah. And they would try to understand why
Oh,
they made that mistake.
Yeah. Was it just a slip of the tongue?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it a deeper misunderstanding?
Yeah.
Once they knew the root cause, then they could address it better.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about going beyond just like correcting the mistake
Yeah.
and actually like understanding why it happened. So they were their own little language detective.
Right. And that's what sets successful language learners apart, that active engagement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've talked about routines, tools, mindset, embracing imperfection. What other insights did Rami share?
Well, one that stood out was making it fun.
Oh, yeah.
Like finding ways to make language learning engaging.
Yeah.
If you want to make it a habit, it can't feel like a chore.
It's got to be fun.
Exactly.
Okay, so what were some of the ways Rami did that?
Well, they were a big fan of watching movies and TV shows
With subtitles.
with subtitles. Yeah.
Oh, that's a classic. I do that too.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you learn just from watching something entertaining.
Yeah. And they recommend choosing stuff you actually enjoy,
Yeah.
something you'd watch anyway,
Yeah.
and starting with stuff that you're already familiar with.
Oh, okay.
So you can focus more on the language and less on the plot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then once you get the hang of it, then you can branch out.
Exactly. Oh, and they're also big on music.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to English music, especially while reading the lyrics.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they said it helped with pronunciation
Oh, yeah.
and like rhythm and intonation.
Music is such a powerful tool for language learning.
Yeah.
It's so catchy, it's emotional, and it exposes you to all these different words and phrases.
Yeah, totally.
Any particular genre that they liked.
They listened to a bunch of different stuff, but they found that pop music was particularly helpful
Okay.
because the lyrics are usually clearer,
Yeah, it's true.
easier to understand. And they also said they just loved discovering new music
Oh, yeah.
through their language learning journey.
It's like turning language practice into a musical adventure.
Right.
That's fantastic.
And it just highlights that you can be eclectic. You don't have to stick to one method or one type of content. Just experiment, explore, find what works for you.
I love that. Yeah, embrace that sense of playfulness and curiosity. And it reminds me of what you were saying before about ChatGPT, like treating it like a real person, having fun with it.
Right.
It's about finding those things that make it less like work and more like play.
Exactly. And that can be such a powerful motivator. Helps you stay engaged.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable, and it keeps you coming back for more.
Okay, so we've explored a lot of these strategies for building consistency. But what about those days when motivation is just gone? We all have them. Those days when even the thought of like opening a textbook is just like,
Oh, I know.
yeah, too much. What does Rami have to say about those slumps?
Well, they acknowledge that motivation ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows.
Right, it's like a roller coaster.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're feeling great and making progress, and then other times you're just like,
Right. And their advice was just to be kind to yourself.
oh, okay.
Don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or two.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay to take a break.
We need to give ourselves permission to rest and recharge.
Exactly.
It's not about being perfect, it's about being persistent.
That's it, yeah. And they emphasize the importance of focusing on the long game.
Oh yeah, long game.
Yeah, it's those small, consistent efforts that really pay off in the end.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
Language learning is a journey, not a destination.
And a journey that's filled with ups and downs.
For sure. But the key is just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one little step at a time.
One step.
One step. What about when you feel like you're hitting a plateau?
Ooh, yeah.
When you're just not seeing the progress?
Yeah.
How do you, like, push past those sticking points?
Well, I think a shift in perspective can be really helpful there.
Okay.
And they suggested reframing those plateaus as, like, opportunities,
Okay.
like a chance to reassess.
Instead of seeing it as a failure, it's like a signal.
Totally.
Like, maybe I need to switch things up.
Yeah, embrace those challenges
Okay.
as opportunities for learning and growth.
So maybe reassess your goals, try a different method, maybe even, like, find a tutor.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about a lot today. Psychological barriers, practical strategies,
Yeah.
all this tech, mindset, everything.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that often gets overlooked, I think. And that's the power of setting realistic goals.
Oh, that's so huge.
It is.
It is.
It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of language learning and like be like, I'm going to be fluent in 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you just set yourself up for disappointment.
Exactly. And Rami really emphasizes breaking down those big goals
Okay. Yeah.
into smaller steps.
Smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah.
Realistic expectations and celebrate those small wins.
Totally.
It's like climbing a mountain. You don't just focus on getting to the top. You got to like broke it down. Base camp, first ridge, next peak. You celebrate each step.
Exactly.
It creates that sense of momentum.
Yeah.
Keeps you going.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of saying like, I'm going to be fluent in 6 months, your first goal is I'm going to have like a basic conversation.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be able to read a news article
Right.
without needing a dictionary.
Exactly. Setting goals that feel challenging but doable.
Yeah. So you're pushing yourself, but not overwhelming yourself.
Right. And then as you achieve those smaller goals,
Yeah.
your confidence builds and you can naturally set your sights higher.
So it's like this positive cycle
Totally.
of like progress.
Yeah.
And don't forget to like revisit those goals as you go.
Absolutely.
What might have seemed impossible at the beginning could be like totally achievable later on.
For sure. It's about staying flexible and adjusting as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we've covered just about everything on this topic of consistency and language learning.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot.
We've explored like the psychological barriers, the practical tips, the tech tools, mindset, goal setting, all of it.
And we've learned so much from Rami's journey,
Yeah.
demonstrating that with the right approach
Mhm.
and a little bit of determination,
And a little bit of grit.
you can make consistent progress.
Yes. Okay, but before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about like the external factors, right?
Yeah.
Routines, tools, environments. But what about the internal factors?
Yeah.
What about those like limiting beliefs.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, the things that hold us back.
Yeah, those inner voices.
So I want you to take some time to think about that.
Yeah.
What are those limiting beliefs that you might be holding on to?
Those doubts and insecurities.
Yeah. What is that negative self-talk that might be preventing you from, like, taking those next steps?
It's so important to be aware of those thoughts
Yeah.
and to challenge them and then replace them with empowering affirmations.
Like, I can do this.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yes.
I am capable. I am worthy of success.
Yeah.
It's about building that positive self-image
Yeah.
and believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And remember, it's an ongoing process.
Oh, yeah.
Keep challenging those thoughts.
Keep practicing. Keep believing.
And keep embracing the journey.
Yeah.
Because language learning is about so much more than just grammar and vocab.
It's about growth and self-discovery.
Exactly.
I love that. All right, so to everyone out there working on your English or any other language, keep believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Keep practicing.
Keep having fun.
Keep having fun. Until next time, happy learning.
See you next time. It's not always going to be easy.
It's not.
And their advice for those low points was just be kind to yourself.
Okay.
Like, don't beat yourself up
Yeah.
if you miss a day or two of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all human.
Right. It's okay to take a break.
Give yourself permission to rest.
Exactly. And I think it's really important to emphasize that, you know?
Yeah.
Focusing on the long game.
Oh, the long game.
Yeah, it's about those small efforts over time.
Right. It's not a sprint.
No,
It's a marathon.
it is.
Okay. So we talked about the importance of self-compassion, like remembering that consistency isn't about perfection.
Mm-hmm.
But what about those moments when you feel like you're hitting a plateau?
Yeah.
You're not seeing the progress you want. How do you push past those sticking points?
I think that's where like a shift in perspective can be really helpful.
Okay.
Rami actually suggests reframing those plateaus as opportunities for growth.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's a chance to reassess your approach.
Okay. Yeah.
Identify maybe where you're getting stuck.
So instead of looking at it as like, oh, I failed,
Right.
it's more like,
Yeah.
maybe I need to adjust something.
Yeah. Embrace the challenge
Okay.
as a chance to learn and grow.
So maybe you reassess your goals. Maybe you try a different learning method.
Right.
Maybe you find a tutor.
Totally. It's about actively engaging with the process.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring all these different facets of consistency in language learning. We've talked about the power of giving yourself permission to speak, the importance of finding that supportive community, the role of technology and AI, and of course, the need for self-compassion and a growth mindset.
Yeah, and I think we've learned so much from Rami's journey,
Yeah.
really highlighting the fact that consistent effort, a positive attitude, and that willingness to adapt can lead to some pretty amazing results.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more crucial aspect that I think often gets overlooked, and that's the power of setting realistic goals.
Oh, that's so huge.
It is,
It is.
because it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of language learning
Yeah.
and be like, I'm going to be fluent in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you just set yourself up for disappointment.
Right. And Rami actually emphasizes the importance of breaking down those big, audacious goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Smaller steps, yeah.
Yeah, setting realistic expectations.
Yeah, celebrating those small wins.
Totally. It's like climbing a mountain, you know? You don't just focus on getting to the summit.
Yeah.
You got to break it down. Base camp, first ridge,
Celebrate each
Just
step.
celebrate each step. Exactly. Create that momentum. So maybe instead of saying, like, I'm going to be fluent in 6 months, your first goal is like, I'm going to have a basic conversation.
Yeah,
Or I'm going to be able to read a news article without needing a dictionary.
right.
Something like that.
Exactly. Something challenging but doable.
Yeah. So you're pushing yourself, but not overwhelming yourself.
Right. And then as you achieve those smaller goals, your confidence builds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you can naturally set your sights higher.
It's that positive cycle.
Exactly.
Progress and achievement.
Totally.
And don't forget to revisit and adjust those goals as you go, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because what might have seemed impossible at the beginning could be totally achievable a few months down the line.
For sure, it's about staying flexible and adapting as you go. Okay, I think we've covered just about everything on this topic of consistency in language learning.
Yeah, it feels like we've gone through a lot.
Psychological barriers,
Yeah.
practical tips, tech, mindset, goals, all of it.
And learned so much from Rami's experience,
Yeah.
really driving home the point that with the right approach and a little bit of determination,
Mhm.
anyone can make consistent progress.
Yes. Okay, but before we go, I want to leave everyone with one final thought. to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the external factors, right?
Yeah.
Routines, tools, environments. But what about those internal
Oh,
factors?
those are big
The
ones.
limiting beliefs, the things that hold us back.
Yeah, those inner voices can be tough.
They can be. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on those internal barriers that might be hindering your progress.
Hmm.
What are those limiting beliefs that you're holding on to? What is that negative self-talk
Hmm.
that's preventing you from taking those next steps?
It's so important to be aware of those thoughts
Yeah,
and then challenge them. Yeah. And replace them with more empowering affirmations.
like I can do this.
Yeah, I can do this. I am capable. I am worthy.
Yes, yes, yes. It's all about building that positive self-image and truly believing in yourself.
It is. And remember, this is an ongoing process.
Yes.
Keep challenging those thoughts.
Keep practicing, keep believing.
And keep embracing the journey.
Embrace the journey. I love that.
Yeah, because language learning is so much more than just grammar and vocabulary.
It is. It's about personal growth and self-discovery.
Exactly.
Well said. So to everyone out there working on your English, keep believing in yourself, keep practicing, and keep embracing those moments of joy and discovery along the way.
You got this.
And remember, the journey is just as much about personal growth and self-discovery as it is about mastering those language skills. So embrace it and see where it takes you. You might just surprise yourself. Until next time, happy learning. Okay, I think we've covered just about everything on this topic of consistency in language learning. We've explored the psychological barriers, practical strategies, tech tools, mindset, goal setting, all of it.
And we've learned so much from Rami's experience,
Oh, yeah.
really highlighting that, with the right approach and a little determination, you can make consistent progress.
Yes, you can.
Uh,
Okay, but before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
okay.
We talked a lot about external factors,
Right.
routines, tools, environments.
Mm-hmm.
What about the internal factor?
Oh, yeah. Those are the big ones.
Those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
The things that hold us back.
Yeah, those inner voices can be so tough.
They can be. So as we wrap up, I encourage you to think about that for a second. What are those limiting beliefs that you might be holding on to?
Yeah, what's that negative self-talk that might be preventing you from taking the next step?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so important to be aware of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And to challenge them. Yeah.
And replace them with empowering affirmation.
Like, I can do this.
I can do this. I am capable. I am worthy.
Yes,
You know, it's about building that positive self-image and truly believing in yourself.
Believing in yourself.
It is. And, remember, this is an ongoing process.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
It's not like you do it once and you're done. Keep challenging those negative thoughts.
Keep practicing, keep believing.
And keep embracing the journey.
Embrace the journey. I love that.
Yeah. Because language learning is so much more than just grammar and vocabulary.
It is.
You know?
It is. It's about personal growth. It's about self-discovery.
Exactly.
Well said. All right. So to everyone out there working on your English, or any other language for that matter, keep believing in yourself.
Keep practicing.
Keep practicing and keep embracing those moments of joy and discovery along the way. And remember, the journey is just as much about personal growth and self-discovery as it is about mastering those language skills. So embrace it. See where it takes you. You might just surprise yourself. Totally.
Until next time, happy learning.